The United Nations General Assembly was meeting in New York City, and there were leaders from all over the world who were there expressing themselves. And I happened to be able to listen to the talk that was delivered by the President of Turkey, President Erdogan. And it was a powerful speech. And as the leader of Turkey, which was once one of the most powerful countries on earth, he made some very clear points. And I reflect on Turkey because I've been in Istanbul a number of times, and every time I go there, and you look at the size of the buildings, and you look at the city, and you have to say to yourself, I mean, these people had power. Especially if you go back to the 16th, 15th, 16th century, you can see the level of power that they had compared to the rest of the world. And even today, his country is very strategic. It was probably the only country that could get the Russians and the Ukrainians to sit at the peace table. So he's a very important person. And he spoke very clear, very straightforward. One of the points that he made very clearly is that the United Nations representatives have been meeting over the past year and witnessing the genocide that is happening in Palestine. And now the bombs are falling in Lebanon. As we speak, this is how he was addressing them. The bombs are falling. And it is a test for the United Nations. Because if the United Nations, if these are the countries of the world, this is a group that was set up in order never to have another Nazi, German type of Holocaust of people, or the misuse of technology, the destruction of nations. That's the reason why this is set up, to stop genocide. So if we cannot do this, then we are under a serious test, and this United Nations could become actually unworkable. And he mentioned that there's a clause within their rulings or the amendments of the United Nations that if all attempts fail to stop any aggression, then they have the right for coercion, which means force. They have the right to send in force. And that is the reality. If a nation becomes a rogue state and thousands of people are dying, this could have consequence for the whole globe. Somebody has to stop them. And so he said, I want to be part of an allied nations, the same way the Allies stopped Hitler. He said, I want to be part of a group of allies who stop the aggression, the things that are happening now, because this is not only going to influence the Middle East, but this will have ramifications all over the world. Even though Turkey is a mighty nation, it is the second most powerful nation in NATO. It is one of the most powerful in the Middle East itself. Okay, even though there are great Chechen warriors and Dagestanis, Pakistan has 170 nuclear weapons in Pakistan. Afghan soldiers are still there. Okay, and there are other major forces. Then how can people be stagnated to the point where they're forced to watch innocent children being bombed and being killed? Something is seriously wrong. Something is wrong. And this is what Muslims need to understand. If not this generation right now, then the next generation needs to understand which direction to go and to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for some real change to come about in our nation in order to be able to come out of the situation that we are in. So the powerful representative of the Turkish nation, representing the potential of the Muslim world that we discussed, over 26% of the world's population, all types of natural resources, strategic position. Turkey is right at the point, the straits there connect Europe with Asia, the Black Sea. It is crucial. Yemen, Djibouti, Somalia at the bottom of the Red Sea. And you see what Houthis are doing now in terms of international trade. Malaysia is on the Malacca Straits. And those straits that are going down through Malaysia and Southeast Asia, much of the world's traffic, economic traffic is going through, that area itself. So strategic positions. There's hundreds of these positions Muslims have. And we have the armies to protect it or to disrupt other people. We have young people. We have a future. Intellectuals. And we have money. Some of the richest people on earth are Muslims. Okay, so many things as we looked at. Our history, our religion is still growing. But with all this, there are some serious contradictions that are happening. And this is the frustration that I felt and that many people are feeling right now, is that with this great wealth, there is poverty. And with the huge armies, there is defeat. There is humiliation. Intellectuals, many of the debates are over trivial matters, over minor things. And the younger generation, those who are online, you'll see many so-called Muslim sites, they're fighting over really small issues. So it creates a type of frustration that is there. And we need change. And we found out that Allah said very clearly, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah will not change the condition of a people till they change that which is in themselves. So it's something in our hearts, something in the body of Islam that has to change. It's like a giant that can do so many things, but the giant is sick. The giant's been sleeping, and now it's waking up. When you first wake up, you feel really groggy, like you're not sure of things. That's how the Muslim world is now. It's like a giant that's just woken up from a deep sleep. And so, in looking at the traditions of the Prophet ﷺ and the different aspects of Islam, we recognize that the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, there is something that I fear for my ummah more than Dajjal. Okay, and that's serious, more than the Antichrist. And he repeated it 3 times. And when he was asked about what it was, he said, misguided and astray leaders. If your leaders are misguided, and this hadith comes in different forms. One time it said, al-a'immat ad-dallun, right? So those are lost leaders. And there's another one that says, al-a'immat al-mudillin. So mudillin are people who are not just lost, they'll take you astray. Because you have some scholars today that will even say, obey your leaders, anything they do. And that has to be put in the right context. Because the right context is, you obey your leaders as long as they obey Allah. So if they don't obey Allah, then you don't have to obey them. Okay? The Ottomans used to say, because I've studied them in some detail, and when they were the most powerful, they had 3 elements. They had another element, which was an important one as well, but they had 3 elements. One is that they had what they call the Alps. The Alps would be the soldiers, the military, the fighters, okay? And then they had the scholars. And then they had the business people. So you combine the 3, right? And that's going to be important today, because not only do we need a military, you got to have an economy. So if you have those, your fighters who will defend you, right? But they are connected to scholars, or led by scholars. And you have an economy underneath it, now we're talking the solution, a reality that can still happen to Muslims. But the danger is, if the scholars are not here, or if the scholars go astray. Remember what the Prophet ﷺ said. He said he fears these leaders, if these leadership people are going astray, they're not doing what's right. Okay? It's worse. He fears it even more than Dajjal. And that's serious. That's something which is really serious. And Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As reported that the Prophet ﷺ said, he said, verily Allah does not take away knowledge by snatching it from people. But he takes away knowledge by taking away the scholars. So that when he leaves no learned person, people turn to ignorant as their leaders. And they ask to deliver religious verdicts, and they deliver them without knowledge, and they go astray, and they lead others astray. This is what happens when the leaders are the Juhal, this is ignorant, the Jahil. When they are the ones in leadership, then it's a serious situation. Or if the leaders become those who will take you astray, Dalun. If the leaders are actually submitting to evil or doing evil, now Islamic society, you can have all the khutbahs, all the salats, everything you want. But we're not going to get success. And we have to study this. We have to understand what it is. You know, in one of the Muslim countries, I don't want to say which one it is, but they used to say if they had a son, and they said this son if he's really intelligent, then send him to medical, let him be a doctor. This happened in a lot of Muslim countries in the 20th century. If he can't be a doctor, then let him be an engineer. If he can't be an engineer, then let him be an accountant. And this literally happened in one country. I'll say it was Syria. They actually took your test scores, and the ones on the top, they put them in med school, whether you like blood or not. The next ones, you become engineer, you become accountant, or you become a lawyer, right? Then they said, in this one Muslim country, if he's a bad little boy, a spoiled brat, then put him in the Quran school. Let him be a Maulana. That's what they were doing. So the little boy who was causing trouble, right? Send him to the madrasa, so the madrasa teacher can beat him into place. So he gets beat to learn the Quran. So what happened then? When people suddenly realized that Islam is the solution, and then these Maulanas, or these so-called sheikhs were graduating, bad little boys who now had a cap on, so now you're in trouble now. Because you have the worst of your people who are actually in the leadership position. You see? So when Islam was in its height, the young males, young females, those who had potential would study Islam. And I'm saying females as well, because there were many female scholars. They would study Islam, the best of the people, cream of the crop. Okay? And then it would go down. So what was it? What was it that takes somebody who has the highest level of intelligence to deal with? And why would this be so important? Number one, again, we have to understand we're dealing with ilm, we're dealing with the knowledge of the revelations. So this is how you're going to govern your society. This is how decisions are going to be made, economic, political, social, not just religious. Your whole life within a society has to go back to this, along with your engineering and your medicine and architecture. Of course, these are all important subjects. Okay, but the base subject is this. The true scholar has to be sincere. Okay, and when that person is doing it for Allah and not for money, because the problem today is you have what is called ulama sultan. They are the scholars of the king, that the king will give them a package, give them some money, buy the bribery, to bribe them, right? Doesn't work.